Imagine this. You're touring a home and you happen to meet the seller. Then the seller offhandedly mentions to you that they're in construction and they did all of the renovations in the home themselves. On the surface, this sounds like it might be a bonus. The owner was more invested in the work, maybe a little bit more care and effort was put into it. But as a buyer, it's your job to dig a little deeper. Did they do this properly? Were the appropriate permits pulled? Did they cut any corners while they were doing the work? In this video, I'll walk you through how to confirm that any DIY work done to the home is legit, what kind of red flags to look out for, and what your options are if problems arise after you've bought. So if you're a home buyer in Calgary and currently doing your homework on a property, then this video is for you. Let's get into it. So we'll start where any serious buyer should begin, and that's with the permits. In Alberta, most structural and trades work to a property must comply with building standards and generally requires a permit. The owner or contractor would be responsible for ensuring that any work done to the property is compliant with the building codes. In Calgary specifically, the city's website and their home renovations and basement resource spells out exactly when you need a permit. Link in the description below. Now, if all they did was just repainting or replacing cabinets, that's usually okay without a permit. But if you're altering any load-bearing walls or doing any kind of trades work, this typically will require some kind of permit. So, when you suspect any kind of DIY work has been done to a property, your first stop should be the city's website to check the permit history of the property. For a quick look, you can use the My Property search tool and search by the property's address, link in the description. And usually, if there are any relevant permits that have been applied for in the last few decades, they'll show up in the property search bar to the left, and it'll look like this. Next, you'll want to speak to the seller directly and ask if they can provide any relevant permit numbers, plans, or inspection reports. And usually they can provide you with a little bit more detail of exactly what's been done to the property. Then, if you need to do a deeper search to confirm any of this, you can use the City of Calgary's property research tool, and they can help you get more detailed information on each permit and what's gone on in the property. Another crucial detail that you'll want to check is to make sure that permits haven't been just pulled, but they've actually been completed. Because sometimes you'll find that a permit has been pulled, but work hasn't been completed or inspected or signed off on. So at this point, if you're having a really hard time finding relevant permits that would relate to the work that's been done to the property, this is a major red flag. You should assume that there might be code violations or that there's been unpermitted work, and you should factor this into your decision. So, having verified what you can on paper, your next tool is your eyes, and better yet, your home inspectors. During the walkthrough or home inspection, you're going to want to pay close attention to areas where you know renovations have been done. Start by examining structural components, as cosmetic changes aren't such a big issue, but structural problems can cause a big headache later on. If floors are sloping, walls are bowing, etc., that could indicate that there's foundation issues or structural problems, or that the person doing the work didn't properly reinforce any structural changes. Changes to the electrical system is a big one to inspect. Your home inspector will want to look at the breaker panel for things like organized wiring, properly labeled circuits, no mystery wires, and no overloaded breakers. Plumbing is another spot where a lot of DIY shortcuts might occur. So you'll want to check under sinks, inspect any kind of pipes, the joints in the pipes, and make sure that there's no signs of leaks or corrosion. Heating, ventilation, and mechanical systems will also definitely deserve your attention. Your inspector will want to ensure that all of the ducts are properly secured and the transitions between the ducts are fastened properly, etc. Finally, don't be fooled by pristine finishes. A lot of people will touch up the drywall, add some tile, or do other cosmetic fixes just to cover up issues or bad work. A good home inspector can typically scan behind the walls with a thermal camera and catch these types of issues. So generally, you're going to be looking for any kind of indication of sloppy work, or better yet, just rely heavily on a good home inspector, as you really shouldn't be doing this part of the inspection yourself anyway. So you've pushed a bit, you've done your due diligence, and now some red flags have emerged. What do you do next? Your strongest protection is your property inspection itself and the inspection condition in the purchase contract. If your offer included a home inspection condition, you can bring in experts to evaluate the severity of the issues and then have them estimate the costs to remediate these issues. Once you have those expert opinions, you can then use that information to negotiate. You may ask the seller to remediate certain issues with proper permits before closing, or take a credit at closing so that you can handle the work on your own after you close on the home. If the defects are too serious or the seller won't cooperate with you, you should be able to use your property inspection condition to walk away from the deal without penalty, provided that the contract was written properly. If you finalize the purchase and later on discover a latent defect, your legal recourse at that point is dependent on the contract that you signed and whether or not misrepresentation can be proven. In Alberta, latent defects may be actionable, but this is the point where you're going to want to talk to a lawyer. Another thing to note is that insurers may decline coverage or raise premiums if major unpermitted work is discovered. In extreme cases, the city may demand that the work be brought to compliance, or even require the demolitions of non-compliant structures. So that's why verifying permit compliance before you commit is so important. In short, rely on your inspection condition, get professionals to check the work, negotiate smartly if any issues are present, and finally, be prepared to walk away from the deal if there's too much trouble. So before you ever drop your offer, treat any home with DIY renovations as a red flag that requires greater due diligence. Ask the seller early on in the process for any relevant permits and documentation. Then verify through municipal records if those permits are valid and closed. Walk through the home with your eyes open, always asking, why was this done that way? And ensure that your property inspector or specialty tradespeople have a thorough look at any renos that have been done and ensure that it's all up to code. If you do discover any major issues, lean on your home inspection condition. Estimate the cost and risk of fixing what's wrong and negotiate based on this understanding. If you do your homework, a home with DIY renos isn't necessarily a bad thing, but just be sure to treat it as something that requires extra due diligence on your part. Renos done by a homeowner can be beautiful and add value, but only if they were done right. If they weren't, you'll need to know about it in advance before waiving conditions. So I hope you found this video helpful and informative, and if you did, please do hit like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.